And a short story should be set off with a quotation mark, double quotation mark, opening double quotation mark, close with the double quotation mark, right? Also, you have to use the American way. If there was a period, period, and then closing quotation mark, not closing quotation mark, period. That's wrong. It's not wrong, but it's not American way, right? And indentation, right? Leave space 5 or 3 spaces in each paragraph. Begin with an indentation. And things like that. Okay, we are going to read the essays written by you. You did the essay, and we are reading the essays first, and then we go to the story. Okay. Annabelle, I liked your essay because she demonstrates what she feels while reading the story. The process of thinking shows in it. This is one way, right? At first she didn't like it, and then she came to like it, right? Okay. Personally, I enjoyed reading the short story, The Man Who Could Work Miracles by H.G. Wells. The first sentence is very good, right? Very natural, right? I must say that in the beginning, I found it rather slow moving, and the language used was so different from what I'm used to that it was quite hard to get into it. But I like the language itself because we are accustomed to reading Middle English and Old English and things like that. So it feels like modern language to us, but to you maybe it's archaic. Okay. The ending was something I hadn't been expecting, but made me want to read on. Besides, you have to read it, right? Especially the part where Mr. Fotheringay was asked to stop the rotation of the Earth by Mr. Maydig, and eventually did so. From that point on, I was really drawn into the story and started enjoying it more. I find the story itself really interesting as well. It's interesting to see how Mr. Fotheringay deals with his abilities and how his use of it changes over time. In my opinion, however, Mr. Fotheringay was too easily influenced by what Mr. Maydig wanted. This can be seen by the fact that Mr. Maydig constantly puts aside the winch difficulty, even though Mr. Fotheringay would like to see it resolved. Another example is the part where Mr. Maydig convinces to stop the rotation of the Earth because time stops, and it isn't as if they are doing any harm. Without thinking about the possible consequences, which I'm not sure were known in the time the story is set, Mr. Fotheringay is persuaded to stop the rotating. All in all, as mentioned above, I really enjoyed reading the story, and I really liked it. Okay. Okay. 김재원. 화장실? Okay. Good. She got a great good. Summary. He italicized the title, but it should be just set off with quotation marks, right? The summary of The Man Who Could Work Miracles. The author, H.G. Wells, seems to have been written okay. It's wrong, okay? The author, H.G. Wells, seems to have written it with a mix of both fantasy and fiction. Within the story, it is possible to describe how the author is strongly influenced by art, for he writes about uniquely fantastic events that happen in daily life. In addition, he has the ability of maintaining the form and shape of its subtle way, subtitle, the way it is by focusing more on the life event than the characters. Also, the characters in the story seem to have their minds filled with imaginative ideas which show the representation of fantasy itself. In summary, this story convinces its readers that it's an artful product in the genre of fantasy and fiction that is not only fun, but also easy and delightful to read. I like the concluding sentence. It's quite natural, and it's very, in fact, I tend to like shorter essay than longer one. Why? Because it's easier for me to read. It takes less time. But if I think it's more difficult to do a short essay than a longer one, right? Because if you fail to put down an idea in an impressive way, you get nothing. So it's safe for you to do a longer essay, but if you're competent, do a very short one, and it's possible you get a superb, the grade of superb, right? Okay. Okay, Kim Jae-un. Sarah Brown, she's not here. She got a grade good. The Man Who Could Work Miracles. I greatly enjoyed The Man Who Could Work Miracles by H.G. Wells. I found that the use of a simple protagonist made the themes of story more relatable. I love the use of a circular ending. It begins at the tavern and ends at the tavern. As it plays with the common science fiction idea of parallel timelines, there are also some interesting philosophical questions to ask after reading this story. Is there, maybe it's wrong, you used a semicolon, but colon is right. Is there such a thing as too much power? If so, at what point is that threshold? If given excess power, how could a person use it, and what everyone else could do to keep it as regulated as possible? H.G. Wells, the ever-witty, sarcastic writer he is, brings about many interesting ideas and questions within this piece. Very compact. He deals with the scientific fact, right? This short story is very interesting. I think many people in reality have the same mentality as Fotheringay. I think H.G. Wells did a good job showing how an average person who discovered they could will things to happen would act using their power for petty deeds. I looked into the idea about how stopping the Earth from spinning would cause absolute chaos. In this respect, we can see a story within a story as a novel structure, like a picture in a frame. Good, I like it. A picture in a picture. A picture in a picture. A story in a story. This narrative method reminds me of several Korean novels like The Claim of Nine. Comment? No, I didn't read it, right? Did you read it? Comment? Okay, good. 장승호? Oh. The Man Who Could Work Miracles by H.G. Wells. The ending of The Man Who Could Work Miracles is exactly the same as the beginning, as the story is a pantomime in prose. Yeah, pantomime in prose. The subtitle. At the end of story, Fotheringay works a particularly large miracle, commanding the earth to stop rotating without proper thinking about the consequences of action. The earth stops rotating, but everything on its surface does not, and all life on earth is destroyed. Fotheringay then realized the enormity of what's done as he is left alone, all alone, in the scene of destruction, and wills everything to go back to how it was before, and for him to lose his powers. The story ends as it began, with Fotheringay, sitting in the pub, arguing that miracles need to be willed, cannot just happen by themselves. This ending is clean-cut, provides a definite explanation of what happens to the character. Nobody's hurt or killed, as everything just goes back to how it was before. I like it. I like it. I will change it to good. Right? Okay. The style, right? The essay, good. 장주연? Yeah. Group 4. Group 4? Yeah. The story, the man who could work miracles, put it in, set it off with a quotation mark instead of italicizing it. The story, the man who could work miracles, is a powerful warning against the impact that humans can have on the environment. So are you an environmentalist? Like me? Okay. H.G. Wells conveys the message by showing how Fotheringay makes absurd mistakes with his miraculous ability. He sends a constable to Hayes, repents his deed later, despite the help of Mr. Maydig, the clergyman. Fotheringay's wording of the earth into a disaster. Finally, he wishes that the power be taken from him, and then makes his last wish to go back to the time when he did not have the magical power. It should be a good thing if humans had a full capability to satisfy their desires, but H.G. Wells predicts that it can be dangerous as well. I like this idea, right? Like AI, right? What will happen in the end? We'll be slaves to machines. Don't you think so? Machines, humanoids will have the power. They have feelings and judgments. They think by themselves, and they will consider humans weaklings, inferior to them, and they will make us slaves. Don't you think so? So you do not want to be slaves to machines, right? So how could you outdo them? I will tell you. How could you outdo them? How could we win them? Luis? Well, like you. You showed the model. You are the model. Be creative. Be creative. Of course, there is a robot who can write a novel, fiction, but they can put the best part into one story, and it becomes a horrible story, right? But man is different, right? Although he wrote this science fiction in 1989, 1899, eh? Oh, 1989, you're right. He is predicting the future science, such as the nuclear power, which recreated what Wells wrote. His prediction can be extended to the destruction of the atomic bomb or even the artificial intelligence. AI. While the development of science and technology can offer humans a lot of advantage, we should never forget the dark side. Even a minor mistake can lead into a calamity. Changzia? So you are against developing IAs further? No? You could create a lot of good things, like automobile, car, right? Ordinary car has the power of 100, 200 horses power, right? Very powerful. So it's just a means for us to use, right? But AI, I don't know. I'm not sure. Probably will be their slaves. That's much the end to the civilization Earth, right? And Luis Vaquez, 장주연. This is very carefully written and very good, probably the best one. Okay, I'll read it slowly. H.G. Wells questions having omnipotence in the man who could work miracles. He begins the tale by introducing the main character, George McWhirter Fotheringay, as a skeptic who doesn't believe in miracles. Very good beginning, right? He is a non-believer. Emphasis, right? He repeated in one short sentence. He goes as far to say that he knows the miracles are so impossible he can command the lamp to flip over that it won't, right? But much to his astonishment, it flips over. Then he is bewildered. Very good. The quote is very. But the rest of the individuals in the bar believe it to be a trick and kick him out of the bar. Very interesting, right? Very embarrassing situation. Then, the next day, he leaves work easily to go to a nearby park to practice miracles. He makes a dead tree sprout flowers out of season, but soon he hears the constable, so he tries to tell the tree to return to his former. Oh, you mistake. ITS, I apostrophe, instead of apostrophe, ITS, right? Its former state, but instead, it misunderstands his wording and flies away in the direction of the constable. After hitting the constable, he doesn't know what to say, so he tells him he was performing miracles. Then, the constable doesn't believe him, so he sends him to hell, Hades, right? Hell, and leaves the scene. But shortly after he sends him to San Francisco, later he meets Maydig, the clergyman of town, and tells him about the miracle. And the clergyman says if he could pause the time, he could save the whole world. Let me see. Later he meets Maydig, the clergyman of town, and tells him about the miracles and performs some innate miracles. Then the clergyman says, if he could pause the time, he could save the whole world. So, Fotheringay tries to pause the world, but instead he messes up, and the world and fate misinterpret his wording, and the world immediately stops turning and sends everything flying off the surface of the globe, including Fotheringay, until he wishes to be placed back on the surface, safe and sound. After being placed back down, he realizes his mistake, looks for Maydig for a while, to no avail. Then he finally wished to go back to the tavern where he was arguing about miracles and to not have his power and to not remember anything. So in a second, he is sent back in time to the tavern, not remembering anything and still arguing about not believing in miracles. So H.G. Wells obviously is not a fan of being able to have your heart's desires or your every wish. He believes in having a balance of right and wrong. In a way, this reminds me of Time Machine because he teleports back in time to the past and wants to rid himself of power to perform miracles and let life take its natural course. Very good, right? Thinking, right? Thinking deeply. 감사합니다. 천만에요. Okay, we're going to read the story itself. No abstract, right? No summary is better than the original, right? So let's. The story is quite long, so we are going to read the whole story, skipping here and there. Okay, let's go back to the story. Okay, today is Wednesday, and you have weekend, Saturday and Sunday, so I'll give you a long assignment, which is to read Frankenstein's the book consists of 3 books, I think, 3 books. And so we are going to finish it 1.5 week. Frankenstein by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. It's a very interesting story, very well written, very popular. Finished the whole thing, the first book, right? 1/3 of this book, and do an essay, 1 page, no more than 2 pages, 1 page long summary or abstract of the story, and I hope you'll enjoy it. It's quite interesting, and you can get the handout at in the basement, right? And I don't know, it's about 6,000원. So we are going to finish this story, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and D.H. Lawrence's story, best story, and that book is also available. So, and probably I will read another one, Brave New World, and the three long stories, and then a lot of short stories, right?
So why wouldn't they need to read the first 3rd?
Yeah, first book.
Just the first?
Just first, yes. Do you want another one? Another If you want, I can give another assignment, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you enjoy doing assignments, right? Okay. Okay, let's go back to H.G. Wells, The Man Who Could Work Miracles. The subtitle, Pontonian Prose. I don't know the music style, but it's the hints, the structure of the novel, right? It is doubtful whether the gift was innate. Very good beginning. When you do a story, short story, the first sentence sets the mood, the whole story in 1 line, and a novelist spends a whole day, a whole week, or a whole month to begin with the story. So the first sentence is very important. And also the closing. Let's go to the last of the story, how it ends. It must be a very short one, I think. Maybe, I don't know. Look here, Mr. Van. It's something contrary-wise to the course of nature done by the power of will. Very good. The summary is actually the summary is the summary of the story. Good. Okay. You don't have magical power, miracles, or things like that. The gift, right? The gift. It is doubtful whether the gift was innate. For my own part, I think it came to him suddenly. The speaker, what? Omniscient. He is like God. He knows everything, and he tells his story. Omnipresent. The speaker is omnipresent everywhere in the story. And he was, indeed, until he was 30, he was a skeptic and did not believe in. So how old is he now? He's just 30, right? And here, since it is the most convenient place, I must mention he was a little man, had eyes of hot brown, very erect red hair, a mustache with ends that he twisted up, and freckles. It looks like what? It looks like the painter, Dali, right? Very, very strange guy. His name was George McWhitter Fotheringay. In a name, there is meaning. In the story, the names of characters is very important, right? So. Not the sort of man by any means to lead to an expectation of miracles, that he was a clerk at Gomshots. He was greatly addicted to assertive argument. It was while he was asserting the impossibility of miracles that he had his first intimation of extraordinary powers. This particular argument is being held in the bar of Long Dragon. Long Dragon. The name of the bar, I like it, Long Dragon, right? And Toddy Beamish was conducting the opposition by a monotonous but effective, so you say, that drove Mr. Fotheringley to the very limit of his patience. Can you change the first paragraph in any other way? You can outdo him, right? But hardly for you, right? Except you. Okay, why don't you redo it, the introduction, in addition to the summary of the marriage. Okay. There were present, besides these two, a very dusty cyclist, Landlord Cox and Miss Maybridge, the perfectly respectable and rather portly barmaid of the Dragon. Oh, so Maybridge must be important, right? Right? So with the opposition, right? The phrase, the perfectly respectable and rather portly barmaid of the Dragon, Miss Maybridge, right? Miss Maybridge was standing with her back to Mr. Fotheringay. So this posture is also important, right? She's standing against him, right? So it's what? A movie, right? It's a scene, right? You are director, and how you would put which character where, right? This is very important, right? So, washing glasses. The others are watching him, more or less amused by the present ineffectiveness of the assertive method, goaded by the Taurus Vadras tactics of Mr. Beamish. Mr. Fotheringay, determined to make an unusual rhetorical effort. Look here, Mr. Beamish, said Mr. Fotheringay. Let us just clearly understand what a miracle is. It's something contrary-wise to the course of nature done by the power of will. Something that couldn't happen without being especially will. This first phrase, actually sentence, is repeated at the end, and within quotation marks. This is pantun, right? In prose, pantun, right? Repetition. So you say, said Mr. Beamish, repulsing him. Mr. Fotheringay appealed to the cyclist, who had hitherto been silent all the time and received his hand given with a hesitating cough and a glance at Mr. Beamish. The landlord would express no opinion, and Mr. Fotheringay returned to Mr. Beamish, received the unexpected concession of qualified assent to his definition of miracle. For instance, said Mr. Fotheringay, greatly encouraged, here would be a miracle. That lamp, in a natural course of nature, couldn't burn like an upside down, could it, Beamish? You say it couldn't, said Beamish. And you, said the Fotheringay, you don't mean to say, oh, the miracle. I like it, yeah? You don't mean to say, and dash, very effective dash, and oh, what happened? Miracles, right? So it's like what? It's good. No, said Beamish reluctantly, no, it couldn't. Something's happening, right? It couldn't. Very well, said Mr. Fotheringay. Then here comes someone, as it might be me, along here, and stands as it might be here, says to the lamp, as he might do, collecting all my will, turn upside down without breaking, go on burning steady. And hollow, it was enough to make anyone say hollow. The impossible, the incredible was visible to them all. The lamp hung inverted, upside down, in the air, burning quietly with its flame pointing down. It is impossible, right? But it's a fiction, right? It was as solid, as indisputable as ever a lamp was, the prosaic common lamp of the dragon, long dragon bar. This kind of lamp all the rooms, right? But he used prosaic, right? In contrast to the miraculous lamp, right? Mr. Fotheringay stood with an extended forefinger and the kneaded brows of one anticipating a catastrophic smash. The cyclist who was sitting next to the lamp ducked and jumped across the bar. Everybody jumped, more or less. Miss Maybury turned and screamed. For nearly 3 seconds, the lamp remained still. A faint cry of mental distress came from Mr. Fotheringay. "I can't keep it up," he said, "any longer." He staggered back, and the inverted lamp suddenly flared, fell against the corner of the bar, bounced aside, smashed upon the floor, and went out. Very dramatic, right? Very dramatic. Good. It was lucky it had a mental receiver, or the whole place would have been in a blaze. Mr. Cox was the first to speak, and his remark, shorn of needless excrescence, was to the fact that Fotheringay was a fool. Fotheringay was beyond disputing even so fundamental a proposition as that. He was astonished beyond measure at the thing that had occurred. The subsequent conversation threw absolutely no light on the matter so far as Fotheringay was concerned. General opinion not only followed Mr. Cox very closely, but very vehemently. Everyone accused Fotheringay of a silly trick, not miracle. A miracle. He performed the miracle. Nobody believes it is miracle performed. So it's a trick, black magic, right? And present him to himself as a foolish destroyer of comfort and security. His mind was a tornado of perplexity. He was himself inclined to agree with them, and he made a remarkably ineffectual opposition to the proposal of his departure. He went home, flushed and heated, coat collar crumpled, eyes smarting, and ears red. So he's very excited, embarrassed, right? He watched each of the 10 street lamps nervously as he passed it. It was only when he found himself alone in his little bedroom in Church Row. Where does he live? Church Row. He lives in Church Row, right? Church. That he was able to grapple seriously with his memories of the occurrence and ask, what on earth happened? He had removed his coat and boots and was sitting on the bed with his hands in his pockets, repeating the text of his defense of the 17th time. I didn't want the confounded thing to upset. When it occurred to him that at the precise moment he had said the commanding words he had inadvertently willed and the thing he said, and that when he had seen the lamp in the air, he had felt that it depended on him to maintain it there without being clear how this was to be done. He had not a particularly complex mind, or he might have stuck for a time at that inadvertently willed, embracing as it does the abstrusest problems of voluntary action. But as it was, the idea came to him with a quite acceptable hastiness. And from that, following, as I must admit, no clear logical path, he came to the test of experiment. So experiments. He pointed resolutely to his candle and collected his mind, though he felt he did the foolish thing. Be raised up, he said. But in a second, that feeling vanished. The candle was raised, hung in the air, one giddy moment, and as Mr. Fotheringay grasped, fell with a smash on his toilet table, leaving him in darkness, save for the expiring glow of his wick. For a time, Mr. Fotheringay sat in the darkness, perfectly still. It did happen, after all, he said. And how I'm to explain it, I don't know. He sighed heavily and began feeling in his pocket for a match. He could find none, and he rose and groped about the toilet table. I wish I had a match, he said. He resorted to his coat, and there were none there. And then it dawned upon him that miracles were possible, even with matches. He extended a hand and scowled at it in the dark. Let there be a match in that hand, he said. He felt some light object fall across his palm, and his fingers closed upon a match. After several ineffectual attempts to light this, he discovered it was a safety match. He threw it down, and then it occurred to him that he might have willed it lit. He did, and perceived it burning in the midst of his toilet table mat. He caught it up hastily, and it went out. His perception of possibilities enlarged, and he felt for and replaced the candle in his candlestick. Here you be lit, said Mr. Fotheringay, and forthwith the candle was flaring, and he saw a little black hole in the toilet cover with a wisp of smoke rising from it. For a time he stared from this to the little frame and back, and then looked up and met his own gaze in the looking glass. By this help he communed with himself in silence for a time. How about miracles now? Said Mr. Fotheringay at last, addressing his reflection. The subsequent meditation of Mr. Fotheringay were of severe but confused description. So far as he could see, it was a case of pure willing with him. The nature of his first experiences disclined him for any further experiments, except of the most cautious type. But he lifted the sheet of paper and turned the glass water pink, then green, and he created the snail, which he miraculously annihilated. Got himself a miraculous new toothbrush. Someone, this is not a typo, someone means sometime. Someone in the small hours, he had reached the fact that his willpower must be of a particularly rare and pungent quality, a fact of which he had certainly had inklings before, but no certain assurance. The scare and perplexity of his first discovery were now qualified by pride in this evidence of singularity and the vague intimations of advantage. He became aware that church clock was striking one, and it did not occur to him that his daily duties at the Gomshas might be miraculously dispensed with. He resumed undressing in order to get to bed without further delay. As he struggled to get his shirt over his head, he was struck with a brilliant idea. Let me be in bed, he said, and he found himself so, undressed. He stipulated, and finding the sheets cold, added hastily, and in my nightshirt, no, in a nice soft woolen nightshirt. Ah, he said with immense enjoyment, and now let me be comfortably asleep. Okay, so he is able to perform miraculous things. Okay, page 448. Concluding part, okay. Second paragraph. You see, when Mr. Fotheringay had rushed the rotation of the solid globe, he had made no stipulation concerning the trifling movables upon its surface, and the earth spins so fast that the surface at its equator is traveling at rather more than 1,000 miles an hour, and in these latitudes at more than half the space, so that the village and Mr. Maydig and Mr. Fotheringay and everybody and everything had been jerked violently forward at about 9 miles per second, that is to say, much more violent than if they had been fired out of a cannon. And every human being, every living creature, every house and every tree, all the world as we know it had been so jerked and smashed and utterly destroyed. That was all. So this is an imagination. These things Mr. Fotheringley did not, of course, fully appreciate. But he perceived that his miracle had miscarried. And with that, a great disgust of miracles came upon him. He was in darkness now, for the clouds had swept together, and blood was a momentary glimpse of the moon, and the air was full of fitful, struggling, tortured wraith of hail. A great roaring of wind and waters filled earth and sky, and peering under his hand through the dust and sleet to windward, he saw by the play of lightnings a vast wall of water pouring towards him. Maydig, exclaimed Mr. Fotheringley's diffused voice amid the elemental roar. Here, Maydig, stop, cried Mr. Fotheringley to the advancing water. Oh, for goodness sake, stop. Just a moment, said Mr. Fotheringley to the lightnings and thunder. Stop just a moment while I collect my thoughts, and now, what shall I do, he said. What shall I do? Lord, I wish Maydig was about. I know, said Mr. Fotheringley, and for goodness sake, let's have it right this time. He remained on all fours, leaning against the wind, very intent to have everything right. He said, I'm going to... He lifted voice against the whirlwind. Now then, here goes. Mind about that, what I said just now. In the first place, when all I've got to say is done, let me lose my miraculous power, let my will become just like anybody else's will, and all these dangerous miracles be stopped. I don't like them. I'd rather I didn't work them ever so much. That's the first thing. And the second is, let me be back just before the miracles began. Let everything be just as it was before that blessed lamb turned up. It's a big job, but it's the last. Have you got it? No more miracles. Everything as it was. Me back in the long dragon just before I drank my half pint. That's it, yes. He dug his forefingers into the mold, closed his eye, said, off. Everything became perfectly still. He perceived that he was standing erect. So you say, said the voice. He opened his eyes. He was in the bar of the Long Dragon, arguing about miracles with Toddy Beamish. He had a vague sense of some great thing forgotten that instantaneously passed. You see, except for the loss of his miraculous power, everything was back as it had been. His mind and memory, therefore, were now just as they had been at the time when this story began, so that he knew absolutely nothing of all that is told here, knows nothing of all that is told here to this day. And among other things, of course, he still did not believe in miracles. I tell you that miracles, properly speaking, can't happen. Whatever you like to hold, and I'm prepared to prove it up to the hilt. That's what you think, said Beamish. Prove it if you can. Look here, Mr. Beamish, said Mr. Fotheringley. Let us clearly understand what a miracle is. It's something contrariwise to the course of nature done by power of will. The structure is tight structure, right? Tight knit structure. It's a tight knit structure. Very good story. I have to. Okay. I'd like to conceal your name, but still, why do we have to conceal the name when I'm going to say something good about it, right? So, Annabelle Stahl, wonderful. You got great good. I had wanted to make a photocopy of this, but that's not good, right? So I refrained from making photocopies. I hardly corrected anything, and there is one mistake. I have to point to it. The title should be, right, capitalized, summary, lowercase, right? Yes, summary. And this is extremely good, right? Probably the Wikipedia article is horrible because it's co-authored by hundreds of thousands of people. So it's a mixture of everything. So sometimes it's good, but the content's good, but it's horrible. The W.B. Yeats summary. William Butler Yeats was born on June 13th, 1865, to John Butler Yeats and Susan Polliston in Sandymount, Dublin, Ireland. Good beginning, right? Some of you used preposition in. That's wrong. He was born in December, or if you give the date, he was born on December 10th, 1920, right there, right? Or he was born on 12th December 1920, things like that. So you have to, so if you go to the elements of style, they will tell you, right, how to express the date, when's, date of the week and month, things like that. So preposition on, right, not in. Yeats is an Irish poet and is also known to be a notable figure of 20th century literature. Besides being such a big literary figure for the Irish literature, he also served as an Irish Senate for 2 years. It can be seen that Yeats is a big literary figure by the fact that he received the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1923. When the Yeats family moved to London, William resumed his studies there, only to finish his studies in Dublin when he eventually moved back. Yeats was 17 when writing his first known works. He published a lot of great works throughout the years of his life. Not that logic, right? So you don't need the years of his life, throughout his life, including A Vision. A Vision is not an article. It's a book title, so it should be italicized, A Vision. Okay? In his later year, Yeats became desperate to marry and get an heir and was rejected by multiple women. I don't think so. Later on, 2 women actually. So rejected by the 2 women he proposed to. In the end, he married George Lees and they had 2 children. Later on in his life, it is said that he found energy from his poetry and the intimate relations he was in with the younger women. That's true. Based on reading his biography page, it can be concluded that Yeats is and will forever be known as one of the most notable figures of 20th century literature. Good. Okay. And Sarah Brown, the man who could work miracles. I like it. I like it. I generally enjoy The Man Who Could Work Miracles by H.G. Wells. I found that the use of a simple protagonist made the themes of the story more relatable. I love the use of a circular ending as it plays with the common science fiction idea of parallel timelines. There are also some interesting philosophical questions to ask after reading this story. Is there such a thing as too much power? If so, at what point is that a threshold? If given excess power, how could a person use it, and what everyone else could do to keep it as regular as possible? G.H. Wells, the ever-witty and sarcastic writer he is, brings about many interesting ideas and questions within this piece. Okay? 장승호? This is summary. This is good. It's slightly different from yours, but it's also interesting. William Butler Yeats was born at Dublin, Ireland on June 13th, 1865. He was the son of a well-known Irish painter, John Butler Yeats. Oh, no connector here, right? You need the period here or semicolon. Right? She spent childhood in County Sligo and in London In mid-1880s, Yeats continued his education and studied painting, but quickly discovered he preferred poetry. He soon abandoned art school for other pursuits. After returning to London, in the late 1880s, Yeats founded the Rhymers Club Poetry Group. He also joined the Order of the Golden Dawn, an organization that explored topics related to the occult and mysticism. Around this time, he also became acquainted with Maud Gonne, a supporter of Irish independence. This revolutionary woman served as a muse for Yeats for years and remained a powerful figure in Yeats' poetry. In addition to his poetry, Yeats devoted significant creative energy to writing plays. He established the Irish Literary Theatre with playwright Lady Gregory, who developed works for the Irish stage. His work after 1910 was strongly influenced by Ezra Pound, becoming more modern in its concision and imagery, but Yeats never abandoned the strict adherence to traditional verse forms. Yeats then became a political figure in the new Irish Free State, serving as a senator. The following year, he received the Nobel Prize in Literature as one of the greatest poets of the century. Yeats was selected for his always inspired poetry, which in a highly artistic form gives expression to the spirit of the whole nation. Yeats continued to write until his death and passed away on January 8, 1939, in Lochbreen, Cap Martin, France. Very good summary. Did you copy it from somewhere? No? Good, very good, perfect. So, the raw material, the Wikipedia material is crude, very crude, right? It's a mixture of a lot of things, and he refined it. Good. And Kim Il-soo? Summary, this is good, okay, listen. W.B.H. is considered one of the main Irish poets of the 20th century who was awarded Nobel Prize in Literature as the first Irishman in 1923. The works of Yeats form a bridge between the romantic poetry of the 19th century and the hard, clear language of modern poetry. Yeats was born June 13, 1865 in Dublin, Ireland. In his young age, his personal philosophy was a blend of aestheticism, believed that art and beauty are important for everything. At the age of 19, Yeats enrolled in the Metropolitan School of Art in Dublin, intending to become a painter. In 1887, however, he becomes a literary correspondent for 2 American newspapers to survive, right, to make a living. Among his acquaintances at this time were his writer friends, including William Morris, George Bernard Shaw, Oscar Wilde. In 1889, Yeats meets the woman who became the greatest single influence on his life and poetry, Maud Gonne. Very good, I like this sentence. Yeats' first and deepest love. Very good. Instead of a semicolon, use colon. Okay, use colon here. Okay. She admired his poetry but rejected his repeated offers of marriage. Good, very good phrasing. Choosing instead to marry Major John McBride. Yeats proposed again after the death of Maud's husband, but she again turns him down. Good. Yeats' experience with the theater gave to his volume of poems in the 7 Woods. A new style, less elaborate, less romantic, and more straightforward in language and imagery. After receiving the Nobel Prize, his acceptance of the role and his responsibility has been foreshadowed in his poems, Responsibilities. The outbreak of civil war in Ireland in 1922 had heightened his conviction that the artist must lead the way through art to a harmonious ordering of chaos. Yeats was not only one of the greatest poets and a major figure in the Irish Renaissance, but also wrote some of the greatest of the 20th century literature. Good. Did you copy it from somewhere? No? Good. Too good to be true, huh? Luis Varquez and 박진희, okay. 박동구, okay. 박동구, 변지원, and 장주현, too short. 최지훈 and 김재훈. Okay, take yours. Now, why don't we go back to the story? Okay, H.G. Wells. Okay, discussions on the man who could work miracles. Do you know the concept of the suspension of disbelief? It's a literary term. Coleridge is probably the first critic in English literature, first critic. And one of the key concepts offered by him is disbelief of suspension of disbelief. Right? When you enjoy a movie, if you stick to facts, it's boring, right? So literature deals with what might happen, right? History deals with what has happened. Science with what might happen, in the same way as literature. But in science, you must have an imagination, but you have to solve the question. You have to find out practical solution to what you think, what you imagine. So it's different. It's different, slightly different. Okay, the plot. Plot is what? Pontoon, right? So this concept is repeated in the whole structure. It begins in a bar and ends in a bar. But also, it begins with the main character's disbelief in what? Miracles, working miracles, and then disbelief with the same belief. He ends with the same belief, right? So it's a pontoon repetition, right? So this phrase, this sentence, is exactly repeated at the end of the story. Look here, Mr. Beamish, said Mr. Fotheringay. Let us clearly understand what a miracle is. It's something contrary-wise to the course of nature done by willpower, and then he works a miracle in spite of himself, right? Does the story end here, or is it to go on forever as a nature theory of the soul or the cycles of civilization? It's interesting. One of you, at least, I don't know who, said that the story will repeat forever. Right? Very good observation. One of you said that. Who said it? Who? You don't remember what you said, right? One of you in your essay said, the story will repeat forever. Something like that. I think so, right? He is going to perform the miracle again, right? I don't know, he has the power or not. He must have lost the power, but you don't know, right? Anyway. And the person in the story, George McWhorter Fotheringay. What do you think of the name of the hero? It's quite ordinary. Fothering, furthering. So in the name there is something here, right? What do you think? George McWhorter Fotheringay. And there appears Cox, Miss Maybridge, Mr. Beamish, Comshot, the owner of the office, right, where Fotheringay works, Winch, the constable, and Mr. Maydick, the minister, and Mrs. Minchin, Minchin, what do you think? Minchin. She munches. Yeah? There's a funny phrase in the novel, in the short story. Fotheringay works a miracle. He creates a rabbit. He eats it, right? Finish one and creates another one, and so chomp 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 chomp. I think. Do you remember, right? And place of story, the long dragon. Expression not usual. The Taurus Vadras tactics. What is it? Taurus, Louis? Taurus Vadras tactics. Have you heard of it? It's a place name in Portugal, and there's a village called Taurus Vadras, but in the Wikipedia I don't find anything but military tactics of annihilation, something like that. So doing everything he can do, things like that, right? So the Taurus Vadras tactics, upside down, maybe. Sometime, right? sometime next week or sometime. Thaumaturgist, what does it mean? I saw it for the first time. Magician, right? Rhodian arch of shadow, Rhodian. I don't know what this means. Rhodian arch. Rhodian. What does it mean? Rhodian arch. And mightily, I don't know what pronunciation, right? Maybe a British accent, mightily or something like that. I don't know. I can get. Chomp chomp, right? The act of chewing, right? Eating. Welsh rabbit, actually rabbit. Welsh rabbit, postprandial, after eating or things like that. So, okay, if you read the novel, there are a short story. You see some scientific facts have been utilized, right? For example, gravitation. Okay, also time, right? And rotation of the Earth, of course. Friction. Interesting. The story was written before we landed on the moon, right? And he said friction, right? So friction. Use of alchemy and things like that. Okay. Literary feats. Pontoon structure, characters and then names, repetition in dialogues, funny aspects. Go to Hayes, go. He got angry. Actually, he does not want to send him. Did not want to send him to Hayes, right? But he got angry and it's just curse, right? And then it's realized, right? Interesting, right? Go to Hayes, go now, and then he disappeared, right? The main character, Mr. Fotheringay's way of life or thinking as clerk, and very humane. He's like a man, petty man, right? He's not a bad guy, right? Very conscientious, right? He sent him to Hayes, hell, and then he's worried about him. Oh, I'd like to get him to San Francisco. He does not know where San Francisco is, right? But also, the scene of helping himself to a second Welsh rabbit out of vacancy, right? Okay, I'd like to ask this question. What is the implication of this story for us and for the 21st scientists, 21st century scientists? Hmm? Actually, we have just created artificial life. And it's like a ball, very small one. That means what? You create life out of nothing. Like this magic. and I'm worried about it, right? Eventually, all of us will disappear, right? The sun is what? Middle-aged. It will disappear eventually, right? And collapse, right? Eventually, but this moment is important, right? We are full of ambitions, desires, right? We have greed and things like that. But despite that, we all also are very good, right? And last night I drove my car, and I live about 50 kilometers away, and in the evening there is hardly any traffic. I can run at the speed of 120 kilometers, and I suddenly saw something white, and then there was a roadkill, white one. I avoided it in spite of myself, right? So I'm good, right? Like you, not bad, right? So that's human, right? That's human, right? We have full of greed, ambitions, and all kinds of desires, but we are very good, right? So the main character, seems to represent all of us, right? He is worried about his work the next morning, so he wants to stop the rotation of the Earth because of that, right? Mr. Mediga suggested, of course, but very interesting, right? So AI, artificial organism, humanoids, depletion of energy, killing of plants and animals, polluting water and air, earth, ocean. Where are we heading? Right? Right? Like still, like this character, we don't know. Right? We are making blunders. We make the same mistakes over and over again, and then we'll perish from the surface of Earth. That's very human. To err is human, right? Okay. Let's see. Why don't we go to your group? There are 4 groups, and talk about the literary marriage, the literary marriage of the story. What is good? What is the most impressive part in the story? And you have a discussion, and each group will represent one of you in each group will talk about the good things about this work, and I'll listen. I enjoy listening to you. Okay, let's go to group 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.